Always gaming, you're liking the game, but gold making is super unclear to me. I had a good video about this, actually, a highlight at one point, and I don't know where that went. Obviously, I get that question a lot. How do you make gold in a sort of clear, defined way? I have a really great answer to that, but it's long and lengthy, and I've been trying to figure out a way to reduce the length of that answer in a very positive and useful way. So here's my attempt at that, and I might highlight this as well and put it on YouTube as a more up-to-date version of it. The best way I can sort of summarize how to make gold in general, or good ways. What the heck? A guild just changed their name to something really weird. Okay, that's fine. Anyways, not to interrupt that. Anyways, the question is, what are good ways to make gold, right? A lot of it has to do with just taking advantage of labor, obviously, right? Use the labor pool that you have in order to generate an income that is sufficient to your actual usage of gold, right? Say, you need labor for not only yourself to upgrade your gear, but also to use the gold to upgrade your gear, right? So you have to use labor not only to upgrade the gear, but to make the gold for that too. And so people have, 3 accounts on Unchained, for example, in order to get more labor to make gold with their alts. Now, I don't really do that. My alt doesn't do very much. I make taxes on it that are tradable. Over time, I ended up making those, his proficiency went up, and those tradable taxes on my alt do sell for quite a bit. And it's good. But I only have one alt for that, and that's it. I don't like to deal with it. Most of my focus is on my main. Now, there are millions of ways to actually make gold. From anywhere from scouring the seafloor for treasure and selling it, or getting a trade pack accidentally you have to go turn in, to selling sheet music that you made yourself, which I know at least 2 people who do that on a regular daily basis. So there are millions of ways to make gold, right? And where to start is a tough one. So a lot of people start with their housing, right? And they'll use labor on various farming activities. And so that's one option, right? Or they'll use labor for trading, or they'll do a combination of both, farm the materials they need, so that now with that labor getting the materials they need for trade packs, they're not spending any gold in the process, right? They're spending labor, which is still a resource. So there's tons and tons of things you could do, but a lot of it usually stems out from going to the auction house and finding things that you can possibly take advantage of, or finding things that you could possibly sell or gain. So this is where my recommendations come in, is to at least start with the auction house, right? And I'm going to go into a couple more things here, but in general, the auction house is a good place to start because you can see not only what sells well and what sells for what amounts, you can see the actual volume of those things. So I'm going to take one really, really quickly that's very obvious, Starlight Arcane Crystal. And this is obvious because tons of people need hundreds of these. I need 200 right now for myself for a quest line. But it's also used in other accessories, it's used in the honor accessories, it's used in all sorts of things. But the reason I bring this up is because you could take a look at the pricing history of this and say, yeah, this sells pretty well, pretty often, at pretty good amounts. All right, this is a nice way, but how do you earn this? So now you go maybe to the codex, or you go and ask people, or you figure out how do you earn this. And there's a number of ways, but the most common way is to go run this particular dungeon 5 times, just Howling Abyss, the regular one, kill the first boss, and you Evanstone the crystal. You Evanstone the stuff that you get from the first boss, and that will always give you at least 1 crystal each time, so you can get 5 crystals a day. You sell each of them for 30 gold, there's a tax involved, but you'll make like 150 gold, right? This is something anybody can do each day, and actually multiple times each day, because every 6 hours, the dungeon resets technically. If you try to go in a 6th time using one of these scrolls that you buy from this dude, from a general merchant, you could actually get in more times. However, there's a limit of 5 times every 6 hours, so people will go in there every 6 hours. They'll take 5 scrolls of these grinding scrolls, which are 10 gold each, and go earn themselves 30 gold, right? And so you kind of make money that way. So you can do that a lot, actually. And that's not a bad way to make money through dungeons. But the point is, it started from the auction house, or it could start from the auction house. So let's say you want to get into farming, you can start looking at things that sell, right? In general, you can start from the stuff that you can just get from the vendors for seeds, like corn. and say, wow, actually there's not that much corn on here. Maybe the prices fluctuate. Oh, they do. They fluctuate like crazy. From anywhere to selling up to 15 silver down to 6, it looks like, or at this point, maybe 4, right? But the point is, you can maybe get into corn and sell when the values are high, right? And this is pretty easy. It doesn't take any vocation. Oh, what's this? Corn flour. Corn flour also sells in pretty high volumes and also fluctuates quite a bit. But this is a vocation way to make money. But you can sometimes sell up to 75 silver per corn flour. So this is also a possibility, right? Or you can get into trade packs and you can start seeing the different ways to make money there. There are a million ways to make money, and you have to kind of gauge yourself what the best thing for you is. How do you want to play the game? How do you want to make money? And again, I said from all sorts of things. You can go exploring, getting treasure maps from ghost ships, and go and try to find those treasure map coordinates and dig those up. Some people do this. There are undersea sunken ships that you can dig up, sort of, through a huge labor-intensive process that you can kind of reduce through other means. And you grab packs from this ship using exploration proficiency, and you turn them in and hoping that nobody catches you along the way, and you make money that way. Lots of people do that one. There are just farming mobs and getting coin purses. That's what I do usually. Obviously, I have a lot of labor to spend that I haven't. But, just farming coin purses is another way to make money, right? If you're okay with just grinding and I don't know, that's something that I enjoy doing. I have no problem with that. So, I'll spend hours doing that and making gold just through coin purses. And so these are labor-using ways to make money. Now, you can get even further up, right? So, for example, that's actually exactly what I was about to go into, Always Gaming. You say you want to go into cooking and potions. I was just about to go into alchemy a little bit and say, you know what? There's a lot of things in this game that require crazy materials, and I'm going to give you an example of one. What is it called? Beautifully colored fabric. Alright, a lot of people need this stuff. But if you look at the auction house, it's actually up here. I'm kind of surprised. But it doesn't sell that much. This means that people are not usually buying beautifully colored fabric, and yet people need it for everything. So what's happening? They must be crafting it. Well, if they're crafting it by themselves, they might be actually just crafting this by themselves, but maybe going down this, and buying these base materials. So you go a step lower and you say, okay, this requires just regular fabric, which you could grow and sell that, or it also requires small root pigment. All right, let's see if that one sells. Okay, it's on here, and it doesn't really sell that well. Okay, so maybe this isn't the best, but you can maybe dabble a little bit into this, maybe try to sell 5 each day, because on average it looks to be something like that. Sometimes somebody's buying a whole ton of it, looks like, sometimes no. So maybe you can dabble into this market a little bit and get the materials you need to make small root pigment, and just make a few and try to sell them every so often. So that's another thing people do. There's other sort of, this is just one example of a way that people can get in. There's tons of other types of materials that are slightly higher up that you can look at and see, do they sell? Can I more easily make them? What do I need to do to make them? And so on. So this is just other ways to get involved. Cooking and potions are a big one, right? People need, what are they called? Assorted ribs. And these are actually a little bit easier to get into, because once you have the proficiency, you only need to go up to specific housing to actually craft them more easily, and I'll actually go to one and show you right now. But people need assorted ribs because it's rank 4 meat, and there's actually higher ranks as well. And wow, this actually does sell pretty well, so this could be an actual way to get involved in cooking if you wanted to. But assorted ribs require 50,000 proficiency, and mutton, beef. I think beef requires vocation for the dairy cows and water buffalo, possibly the same for mutton. No, those are just sheep. And all these other things that you could collect and actually go into, but you see how this requires assorted sirloin to upgrade. That's not actually always the case, so I'm actually going to go to my recorded alchemy house and show you some other stuff with cooking and potions specifically that allow people to sell this stuff. Now, usually these kind of vocation things people will do with their alts. So because of that, the actual price and gold that you make out of it is going to be a little less. Because when people make stuff to sell with their alts, they don't usually care about the labor to gold return. So if you're going to get into this market with your main, you're going to have to expect to compete against other people who don't care as much about the gold returns. So they might be pricing things a little bit less than you're happy with. So you might want to go actually into a different market. But this is an example of an upgraded house, an upgraded townhouse that has a manufacturer's workbench, and I forget what it's called. This is an Apothecary's House. Now this has food and potions that you can craft. You can actually craft these without needing to upgrade anything, and they actually require some different materials. For example, those assorted ribs from earlier, this still requires a 50k proficiency. However, it makes 10 at a time, uses all these materials, which is a little bit different because it doesn't require the vocation stuff from before. And you can plant your own beehive if you wanted to, just to kind of make up for the fact here. And so you can make things a little bit cheaper this way. Plus, if you make things through this house, so you see here, Mossy Pool also doesn't require upgrading, but it's a little bit easier to craft. Not only that, but this has a chance to give you double the amount. I don't know what the percentage is, but when you craft it, there is some percentage, some low percentage, that when you craft this, these 10 potions, you actually get 20. So people use this as well to be able to make money off of it if you're doing it in a very efficient way. It's just an example. So in a sort of cooking and alchemy sense, there is a path to make some money that way. But my point is that there are really a million ways to make money, and you kind of have to find ways that are interesting to you. And a lot of them are not labor intensive either, just like I was talking about how how you can just run this dungeon 5 times and Evanstone some stuff. The Evanstoning requires 10 labor per Evanstone for each of the things that you get from this boss, but that's not really a big deal. So I'm actually going to do this right now because that's one of the things that I wanted to do while we still just chill and answer questions. But yeah, so hopefully there's a lot to it. Always Gaming, and to anybody who has these questions, there's a ton of things to this, to gold making in general. There are people who risk actually their own money and kind of gamble a little bit with their money. What they do is they will flip auction houses, right? When you've gained a ton of gold, you could actually buy out an entire market and resell them at a higher value in hopes that the market goes up and you can sell everything that you bought lower for higher, right? It's tough to play that market because you have to also take into mind the taxes and how much you'd actually be losing to taxes, as well as other people getting involved in those markets, right? This is sometimes why some materials fluctuate so much in price. We just saw corn fluctuates like crazy, and it's usually very much because either it just gets bought out because somebody needs the corn, or it gets bought out because someone is going to resell all of that for twice the amount. It happens very, very often. And people do this all the time. So that's another way that people make money, and that one doesn't require labor, right? People are gambling essentially with their money in order to try to make more money. It's an extremely powerful way to make money if you get lucky, or if you sort of know the market very well, you can kind of understand it and be able to take advantage of it. But that's like any stock, right? So that's another way to make gold in this game. And like I said, there's millions just because of how in-depth you can go with gold making. Always Gaming, the one thing I don't understand, or you don't like about the game rather, is that it seems really reliant on alts at the end game. If you're trying to become the absolute most competitive person at the top of the list, sure, but because that's so stressful and annoying and those people end up quitting anyways, it's not really worth your time, I would say. Now, I would say that I'm fairly competitive. I've spent more gold on luxury things because I understand the gear curve. I understand that the equipment that I have at 12k gear score is pretty much exactly what I need, and I don't upgrade things without an actual purpose. And I would say that I'm an end game. They're saying they recommend 14k gear score to go into the garden. I have the stats that I need. Gear score doesn't matter to me. The stats that I need are perfect. I should be okay, especially with a group of people. So I wouldn't say that it relies on alts. I think that alts are definitely a nice way to make up for, having like less time maybe. You can just use your alt and make something really quickly and then, go back to your main. But here's the other deal. Because so many people don't care about the labor to silver, the labor to gold ratio on their alts, like, they'll use 5,000 labor, their entire labor pool on their alts, and make only like 10 gold, right? Because they're okay with it. Maybe they're just getting proficiencies up. But it's a bad example, but my point is people value it less, right? Because of that, you can still make up for that in other ways with your main. So example, I have one other account. I use it for tax certs. It took a long time to be able to even make tradable tax certs, so that was a huge investment in itself. And now it just slowly makes money over time, which is fine. The bigger deal in all of this is that I make more money on my main. In fact, I make so much money on my main because I have other ways to make money that I'm happy with. The big one is I do actually do auction house flipping. That's something that, you know, after 6 years in playing this game, I can kind of understand the auction house. And a lot of my income comes from auction house flipping. Now, I haven't done that in a little while. I've been using more gold than I've been gaining. I've been very, very busy. But that's something that I do. And so because I make more gold with my main than I could ever with any amount of alts, I'm okay, and I can stay up competitively, you know, so to speak. Because, you know, competitive, I don't know, people wouldn't think 12k gear score is competitive, but I can fight against the top people and understand the gameplay enough to be able to sort of work with it, right? Plus I do things like this dungeon, you know, 5 times a day, go there, kill this thing really quickly, Evanstone this piece, and get a Starlight Crystal that I can then sell for 30 gold if I wanted to, but I have to save some up. So, anyways, my point is that usually on their main account you're going to want the highest value of using your labor anyways, and because of that, if you have one account, you're going to be okay. Like, it's fine, it's just, if people are rushing and stressing about trying to stay at the very top, yeah, it's going to suck, absolutely. But if you're just playing the game to enjoy the game and because you want to play an MMO for an extended period of time like they're designed to be for, you're going to be fine. And you're going to have fun with your friends, and you're going to be able to do dungeons or do PvP with your friends and with your guild and with your faction, and you'll enjoy it and it'll be fine. But when people stress out so much about stuff, then it's not as fun in general. And a lot of people like the competitive stress, and that's what they do for fun, and I totally get that. But I don't recommend that route just straight up, especially if you're still kind of learning the game. But yeah, I'm not mad you're saying you need at least one extra account. It's nice to have an extra account at least, right? Because that extra account also gains diligence coins from Arc Pass stuff. At least you get another pool of diligence that you can spend, and it definitely helps to have that. But it is stressful to also go and manage multiple accounts. So I don't recommend that if you don't want to. But yeah, I made one extra one. I hate dealing with alts. It actually, that's right, Cody, it makes me feel really, really bad to have to deal with alts. It is so not fun for me to spend any time on a character that isn't this one, even if I'm making gold for this one. But I got one at least because I like the extra diligence gain, and I don't really think about it very much. You know, I don't do very much on it. It just makes taxes, does what it can for the Arc Pass, and then I log off, right? 5 minutes, literally. I don't spend as much time as other people tend to. But yeah, I'm not mad you're saying you're a pirate. You're making a lot of gold fishing on your main and taxing on the alts. Taxes on the alts. Yeah, fishing is a good way to do it, too. I didn't even mention that. I'd say that there are better ways for ocean content to make money, such as Onyx runs or trade runs. But yeah, dude, fishing is a really chill way to play the game, and you can do it with friends and have fun, and, you know, and it's perfectly good. In fact, it's something that I always wanted to get into more, but I don't have a fishing boat, and even on my legacy character, it's just not something that I ever got into. But it's absolutely a good way to make money. And you stay competitive just fine.